Hey guys, how are you doing? Been sick the last week, but I've been working hard on a lot of commissions, a lot of stuff, sharpfire stuff, and also darts. Um, I just wanted to do an update while I was trimming the darts for the side 2. So, most of the time you don't have to trim the darts, but every time when I do work on darts, I check both sides of the darts by running it through my sizing die. And the sizing die levels it, and it's a little tighter right here. You can see there's a brass ring in there, and then it's 509 aluminum all around. It's the same diameter as an Xplorer barrel, basically, but it's tighter in here. So this is 478 on the inside. So it grabs the dart. So when it grabs it, the foam, as it goes up, does this. So when you trim it, you have a nice edge on the back. It's a very nice way of doing it. This is also level, completely and totally level on it. And as you can see, okay, for example, that's not level. Okay, so I have to sit here and I have to trim these, but not all of them. It's just this is what I do. This is what I do when I do a dart commission. They're $40 for 100, and they take a long time to do. About a week to rinse, about a week to wash, another day to rinse and dry, which is 8 days. They take the gluing. It takes only a day or two, but they have to. One side has to dry for 3 days in order for this to be, and then when you have the other side, it's got to dry for another week. Then you have to trim them. Yeah, it's a chore, and they take a long time. I'm debating if I want to keep doing the darts or not. The money's fine. $40 for 100 shipped, $22 for 50 for 50. It's not. It doesn't make me a ton of money or anything, but what it does do is it gives me more experience making darts. It does make it so these darts get out the door more, and when they're glued, they're next to indestructible. I mean, I'm always shooting with my pistols that can shoot. Most of them shoot in the 250s. I got one that will shoot a V3 about 220. My AirTech 2000, this can fire through an AirTech 2000 at 300 feet per second, no problem. Actually, V3s are 250. The V2s are 300. That's right. And I got the Type R right now shooting these at about the 240, 250 range. So the Type R and the AT2K will go about the same speed. Except when you have V2s, the AirTech is about 20 feet per second faster. But, of course, the Type R is a sniper carbine pistol. It's more accurate. So yeah, I do trim these, and I cut these. And I wanted to do an update about a few things, now that I'm done explaining that. Number one, a lot of anti-Xplorer hate lately. A lot more than even usual. And a lot of it's pretty, it's kind of sad, it's really sad. Well, first off, you got the Zeus shell case, okay? And the Zeus shell case is, well, let's just say, I agree that the shell should have been made better, but there's a lot of bad blood either way. Me and one of my mentor friend actually outed a lot of stuff that I didn't want to say on Facebook, but he said it. It's kind of one of those hard cases. You got a small prototype shop, makes Nerf stuff. You want them to prosper because there's really no one else like them, and everybody else just does things kind of like the old way. And some of the old way is good, and some of the old way in the neck just needs to be ratified and changed. Kind of like, Liam Davis. Okay, I don't normally use an HPA, but that's the kind of thinking we need. We need the kind of thinking of, hey, we can use high pressure air. Double convert it down to low pressure, and we can use it in a Nerf gun. Yeah, we need that kind of thinking, and we don't have it. You know what I mean? Everything gets stuck in this old way of thinking, and it gets there. But at the same time, when you have something new, things just, And I know from my own experience. Okay, I take a long time to do commissions, but all my commissions are bitching. Now watch, I hire like 3 people or something. Hey, yeah, here's how you make a sharpfire breach. And oh yeah, here's how you do darts. And I know for certain, whoever I would hire to do this stuff, one, couldn't do it for the money, the margins that we have, and two, um, it's just, they wouldn't be the same as you, you know. So right off the bat, you have medium to low paying jobs. Okay, so how do you keep someone motivated with medium low paying jobs? So my dad used to own a fiberglass company, and we had two families basically that were, that were the laminators, were the painters, were the sanders, were, the helpers, the people that pulled the parts out of the molds and put them on the shelves and sanded all the edges and put them on the trucks so we could take them to RV companies and they could put them on their RVs, or in their RVs if they were shower stalls. We had salesmen that sold us our resins, sold us our cloths, sold us our mats, sold us our catalysts, all that stuff. But they were like outside, like for Ashland Chemicals or Cargill or whatever. And the guy who actually, the representative who actually worked with Cargill and Ashland was really nice. I mean, family friend of my dad's and everything. I mean, really, really cool guy. So I knew him since I was a little kid. I mean, and we have all this stuff, and that shop ran for 35 years. And before that, it was my grandfather's shop. And I tell you, it's not easy to motivate people in low wages, and it's not easy to get a shop to think in the same way. And I think we have a lot of this at Xplorer. It's just that I've seen it in so many shops, unless everybody's making mid $20 an hour, and even then people bitch, it's hard to keep people motivated. If they're not players themselves, that too. I mean, I really, if I were to hire somebody to help me with my nerf stuff, and I've known a few machinists, there's so many things that a lot of machinists and a lot of people would say, oh, who gives a shit about that? Oh, who cares about that? Oh, it has a bump in the brass, big deal. Oh, the brass is out of round, big deal. Oh, it's a huge deal. It makes a huge deal. Customer gets it, it's totally off. Where they wouldn't understand because they don't do it. If you got people that do put the heart into it, fine. But who puts their heart into it in an equivalent? And I don't know how much they pay people at Xplorer, or pay people at Orange Mile Works, or pay people anywhere else. Well, all I know is, unless your heart is in it, regardless of how much money it is, excuse me, you won't have that quality reflect. And you will see it in the end product. Now, they lowered the price of the foam, and the cutting of the foam is not very good. I mentioned why. But you know what? I'm a guy who basically takes what I have and works with it. Okay? So, I get, for example, Spirit of Xplorer Blaster. Which, that's what this was. Spirit of Xplorer Blaster. Okay? Yeah, it was firing when I got it. Sure. But there were a lot of things that I personally just wanted to change because of my own idiosyncrasies, my own way of modding. One of which was I immediately took the fence for the bolt sled off. Within a week, I see everybody doing it. And I don't know, maybe I'm forgetting something. Maybe somebody else did it before me. Maybe I saw it somewhere else and did it. I can't remember, but within a week of me getting this blaster and taking the hatch off, I saw everybody doing it. And why not, man? You got nice machine parts in it. You got aluminum. You got a composite, dart gauge. You've got a nylon, breech pusher. I mean, shit, man. Why not show that off? They should make this clear. I mean, if I were to think of an accessory Xplorer should make, is they should make a clear hatch. That's what they should make, because these parts are just so bitchin'. I mean, I every time I look at this blaster, there's two things that I notice that I look at the most, and that's the barrel, which I actually recrowned because it used to be 16 inches. As you can see, really nicely machined. Has a tiny little crown in it. You can barely see, but it's perfectly level. This is completely concentric on all sides. And I sanded and polished this. This is like, so the aluminum has a grain to it, like all my other barrels. Stuff like that I did. Not really anything that would affect performance, but just my own little fit and finish kind of stuff, You may notice that the bolt sled has a little break in it. But there's a reason it has a break in it. Because I took some Go-To glue and I made a gasket right up here that goes into the gate right there. So every time you fire, you have an airtight seal. And there's no way that any air can leak from the top there. So it improves my velocity like 20 feet per second. Just stuff like that, you know. I got a spring and a piece of aluminum in here, so this can't go. And then I put a really strong spring. I took this spring and I found a spring that was around the same size but a different gauge that was 5 times stronger, so that when this detents into this, but back here, it doesn't move. So not only do I have the spring and all that in there, but I have this that's actually made to make it not move, and it doesn't move. Okay, the pump action. Okay, this is 13 coats of acrylic clear coat, hand sanded, hand polished. The last 3 coats. And I'm still working on it, actually, but it's so cool. I mean, it looks like it's embossed. I mean, you look at it, if you look at it up close, the lighting is not being my friend. But you look at it up close, and you can kind of see the sanding marks there, but I'm still polishing it, and gave it another coat and polished it. But look at that. Isn't that cool? It looks like something you'd see on a Japanese katana. I mean, it's seriously. Now, of course, you guys know, paint, all that stuff, I've never really given much a shit about. This has seen quite a few battles, so I gotta repaint it. But I have like 3 extra shells from doing Bird of Preys. So, as you know, I have 5 extra shells from doing Bird of Preys. So I have 5 more of these where this came from. So if I ever break a long shot shell, all I do is I swap it. I might send one to get hydro dipped. I might repaint it, something like that, you know. But that was what I did on the Singapore Express. Mainly, what it is just is just things I want for fit and finish. The only real functional thing I did different was, okay, like for example, the 18K spring in here off flat ends. Okay, so let's get this spring right here. This is a smaller spring. This is a 2mm by 7/8 by 9 active coil spring. Okay, so it's a spring like this, but imagine the spring is 1.5 inches longer. That's basically an 18K, but it does the same gauge and thicker, but I couldn't find 5.5. All I could find was 4. But okay, so look, I didn't buy it like that. I did that myself. That's right. I took a file and I flattened it from the one side to the other, so that when you put it in a blaster, the biasing is perfect. It's perfect. So if your pullback's perfectly flat, your spring stays perfectly flat, it never hits the plunger rod. It does cost it a little bit of compression because you're taking this side off and that side off. So it's cost you a little bit of compression, but it makes the prime softer. It makes it smoother. And what you lose in compression, you gain in just performance. And if I ever wanted to give it a little more power, let's say get this up to about 230, all I'd have to do is put a little pre-compression spacer on the on the spring plate, or use a thicker spring plate. That's all I'd have to do, and I would get it into 220, 230 land, no problem. This thing does about 200 to 210 feet per second, which is, in Xplorer terms, that's about 170 feet. That's pretty good. That's pretty, I mean, you think about it, I'm just flat out shooting it, and it goes BAM! Like that, you know, I mean, that's bitchin', you know? Okay, so, I had a friend who is online, and he had a problem with a part Xplorer has, and one of the reasons I'm doing this video, I might cut this down to another video just to tell him. So I had a friend who had a part. It was just made of this material right here, the shotgun grip material, but it's the stock, okay? And what he found was it's loose and it's janky, okay? I believe it's loose from these 2 sides right here. Now, I had the same issue with this up here. Now you notice I don't bitch about this stuff. I just go, okay, I'm the Mac, where's my file? I'm going to make this fit like it was an HK USB SOCOM 23 or something. I mean, I'm just going to hand fit. I mean, I've not ever owned a gun where I haven't hand filed my own trigger shoes on one of my 45s. Or, I mean, the Smith & Wesson, for example, okay, that goes to a shop because that's Smith & Wesson. Okay, that would void the warranty if I did anything different. But when it comes to 45s, because they're so interchangeable, your trigger shoes are interchangeable, all that stuff, you can hand do a lot of stuff. Or you just take a filing stone and you file like the slide rails. Like, for example, my V16, the slide rails were real tight. It was because the slide actually was too tight for the frame, and so you could see that the frame dovetails had space, but the slide was crunching and it was jamming. So I took a fine stone and I just real slowly one side, other, turn the slide over, other side. And I did that for about 30 minutes. Okay, I put it back on, perfect fit, buttery fit. You don't have like those the machining marks on them anymore. It's like nice, smooth. And I'm not talking about just breaking out a file. I'm talking real precision hand work. Okay. I got groups that were like 1¼ inches to 25 yards with that gun. And everyone else who owned a V16 got like 2-inch groups, 2¼ all that. But it was because I personally worked on it. I also sanded the front of the barrel and I re-crowned the barrel, because the barrel crown on a V16 Springfield Armory long slide, it's a little rough and sometimes it's uneven. So, yeah. So you see what I mean? It's that kind of stuff. Well, this is what I did on this. Okay, so you basically what I did was I took off these 3 screws right here. I took this off and this off. I pulled this out, and this whole joint right here on the bottom dictates how far or how close it is to the front. Now, for a while, it was moving really bad. Now, a little bit of play is okay. You do need a little, but if there's a lot of play, it's going to also translate to how smooth your bolt sled is moving, and it's also going to translate to a lot of things. So all I did was I filed one side of this, and then I filed the other side of this with a 5-flat file. Okay, there's the Craftsman 5-flat file, and I made sure that both of these were flat when I did them. Screwed it back together, and it is phenomenally better. Phenomenally, just way better. Well, you can do the same thing with the same material on this side. And you can even make it a little tighter than that is, so when you screw your screws back together, it's actually clamping this real nice. You don't need to use tape, you don't need to use anything else. So basically what you do, you take off your rear stock, the Xplorer stock, okay? Not this one, not the long shot one. And you boom, 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 boom. You take it off, you file one side. Now do both sides, not just one. File the other. And what you will notice is that because it is a molded part, the ends on them will bubble. They'll either do this, or they'll do this, and they'll cause it not to have the best fit. But you got to do this as evenly as possible. Then I would take a piece of 220, and I would tape all 4 sides on like a table, and then I would just flatly sand it. Just not real hard, just enough to get rid of all the unevenness. One side. Then I take the other side, do the next. So that what you would have is you have 2 joints that are perfect. Then, blow it out, all that stuff. And what I find also is pledge. Pledge works really well on these composite parts. It gives it a nice sheen to it, you see? It also cleans it out, and it makes it so it's a little more weatherproof because it has wax to it. So, yeah. And by doing that, you can dictate the size of the part, So there was that one complaint. And then there was a complaint about the retaliator bolt sled not having the fingers on them. Okay. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay. So here is an Orange Modworks bolt sled right here. Okay. Orange Modworks bolt sled is pretty much a carbon copy of the Nerf bolt sled. And it has a finger here, and it has this here, okay? And what that does is that takes your dart gate, and as it's going in, pushes it down, and then it engages the cam here, and when it pulls out, it goes up because it's spring loaded. Well, on that one, they're both like this. Now, of course, if you have a seal breach kit for your from Xplorer, you don't really have to have this finger. But there's no real reason not to have it. And not only that, but if you don't have it, you absolutely cannot, you can't do it. You can't use it. It's useless. You can't use the dart gate. So a few people got a little mad about that, and all that stuff. And I don't know if the designer just decided to do it, or if the reality is, and I've heard this explanation before, actually. It's an Xplorer part made for Xplorer stuff. Yeah, I've heard that before on a lot of stuff, and, well, that might be the explanation you get. But don't complain to me. I don't work for Xplorer, okay? Hang's just my friend, and he has his own ways, his own philosophy, and he's allowed to run his shop as if he wants. I understand that a lot of this stuff is really frustrating, but I do know workarounds on stuff. I've gotten great stuff from Hang before. I've gotten stuff that I've had to work on to make it great, but nevertheless, all the results I've ever gotten were great. But I think a lot of people buy Xplorer gear and forget that this is a hobby. This is not, this is not Turner Sports Goods where we're buying Daddy's shotgun. Okay, we're buying like a 10 gauge shotgun or something like that. No, we are craftsmen. That's what we are. And I guess this hobby kind of, and maybe even Xplorer and even Orange Mod Works, Osnerf, Cartaya Modworks. Well, my stuff's pretty buttoned down. But at anywho, it's one of the reasons I'm always late. But at anywho, expect this whole hobby expects you to kind of have a little bit of modding knowledge and have a bit of working knowledge to do it, to do what we do. So before firing off that red letter, really think about, well, a lot of this stuff can be worked out. Okay, so like for example, okay, the foam's not level. Well, I have a sizing die. Who cares? You know what I mean? Or like the shotgun, the shotgun grip isn't perfectly tight. Well, there's a way around that. The hole on the shotgun grip is off. Well, there's a remedy to that. So let's say, for example, you have this hole is not level to this hole. Well, you do have a place you have a little bit give, and that's this junction right up here. So what you can do is you can unscrew these like a thread or two, and the side that's off, you can push one forward and one back. Then you can take this right here and just sand it so it's level, and you're fine. You're fine. I saw one in the video where that one guy that's having the case, okay, where the bolt is like that. Well, part of the reason is you have to line this up, and there's no lining pegs on the inside of this, because on this side, that's the trim side of the mold, not a molded part. So what you have to do is, that's what I'm saying, is that Xplorer, Orange Mod Works, it doesn't matter what company you're dealing with. You have to have a bit of common sense knowledge, and you have to have a little bit of skill to build this stuff, and to know it. Because, the Xplorer kits are still kits, okay? Their blasters, okay, complete blasters should be better, definitely. But, like for example, you shouldn't have any problems firing the dart. You shouldn't have any cracked plunge tubes, that sort of thing. But you still inherently have to have this knowledge of fixing a problem, especially if you're USA. See, I'm the United States. I can't just go to Xplorer and take my blaster and walk down the street with my blaster. Well, I'm sure you can in Singapore. And say, here, Hang, I'm having a problem with this. I'm having a problem with bolt slid. I'm having a problem with shotgun grip. Yeah, I can't do that. I gotta fix it from where I'm at. But there are people who can deal with these issues, people like me. Or how about, okay, this hangs too far. Now on mine it hangs too far because I chose it to hang too far. See, on the front of a long shot, you have this over here. Do you notice that I've grinded that completely off? Okay, this right here usually has a finger that this interlocks. If I didn't, it would end right there. Okay? It would end just like that. So I made it too long on purpose because I wanted this breech finger to have more bite, so it had a tighter seal. And it does. It works great. Great guns. So I did that custom myself. I decided, you know what? The shotgun grip shouldn't have a forward limit. The forward limit should be defined by the gate and nothing else. And Hang didn't design it that way. Well, maybe he did, because there is that front thing on here. But you have to put that somewhere on here because it has to hold the screws right here. Okay, but it was more Nerf made the blaster so that this isn't a straight line. So I'm going to take that in the front that limits it, and I'm going to grind that down. And that's what I did with the fine files. I just ground it down so that my shotgun grip can go as far forward as the gate is. Well, somebody's certain video, he doesn't have the kit in the shell. I suspect very highly that on that shell, the Zeus shell, that gate has to be there to define the limit of the front gate. So, like, that's an honest mistake. Anybody can make that and think, well, you know what? We want this and this to be the same. And on Hang's kit, it is the same. You know, like the Spirit of Xplorer blaster, it is the same. But obviously, you want one to have either farther back or far for the other, because you want all the pressure to be at that point, not shared between 2 points, because we're dictating air pressure here when we're firing. So if you dictate all your pressure to be held at the gate, all the frontal pressure while you're holding this forward. Oh, and also on Xplorer blasters, holding this forward increases your velocity as much as 30 feet per second. Okay, so it's very easy for somebody to blame stuff based off of certain things, but there's certain things that are adjustable. And this isn't adjustable, I would say, like an inch. I'd say you probably have a millimeter or so forward and back, but that's enough to dictate the bias of your bolt sled from these 2 points. So I see a lot of this hatred. I see a lot of stuff, but it's like, you know somebody for 3 years, you know what he thinks. And yes, I didn't have coffee with Mr. Hang every day or anything like that. I don't work for him, but I've had enough conversations to know how he thinks and how he does things. And like, give you a quick rundown. Okay, Zeus shell, probably a prototype. Do I think he should have released the prototype to somebody? No, I just think that was an invitation for somebody to bitch. This is a community that if people want to bitch about something, they will. I think he should have covered his ass a little better, as I do, okay? We all have to, all right? Which is one reason I take a long time doing my blasters. I make sure they're perfect. That way nobody can bitch. I mean, I know there have been people that have bought blasters from me that thought that they would have something to bitch about when I got it, and they didn't. And I tell you, those guys are like, oh man, never complaining about you again, Chris, you know? Well, so that's one reason I do blasters. So the Zeus shell, the forward limit is because he doesn't have a gate in there. I'm just go out and say it, Alien Troy's right, okay? That forward limit being too far is because he doesn't have a bolt gate in there. This, and this, have I seen that kind of discrepancy if this is bolted wrong? Yes, I have. So you want to center this from up here and go over there. If you can't center that from here, you just take the side, which is not threaded on this, and you can probably file and sand it a little bit with a round rat tail file. The argument, of course, is it's expensive. It should be perfect right off the bat. Well, you still have to know how to assemble stuff, guys. Yeah, I mean, really. Any more than a millimeter, okay, send it back to Hang. Sorry, but this is off spec. There you go. If it's like so bad that this and that's off, okay, send it back to Hang. I agree with that. Retaliator bolt sled is probably assuming that it's a breech kit. However, the one in the illustration actually has that on there. So I would have made it. So I would have decided, okay, I'm gonna make this for my kit, or I'm gonna make this for all retaliators, or I would have just made it an option. Like, for example, here you go. Hang, if you're stuck with a bunch of these, okay, so you basically put in your little title bar under your retaliator bolt sleds. For Explorer kit, yes. For for Explorer kit only, breech finger version, and add $5 free, whatever it costs more to do that one little tab there. And then you make some brand new ones. If all of yours doesn't have that tab, then you make some brand new ones with the tab. Then, when they go and they order the bolt sled, and they order it without the tab, you say, well, look, I have this option here. You want to do a return and get the other one? Fine. But you've covered your ass now. You now have an option for breech finger, no breech finger. Boom. Okay? Simple as that. Simple as that. You know, dark gate finger, no dark gate finger. Boom. Simple as that. It's that simple. Okay? Let's see. This rear thing over here, same issue with this. I would just trim these tighter. But do remember, there is a philosophy. You can remove material from something you're filing. You cannot add material to something you're filing. I would put a disclaimer that says, basically, if you're adding on parts, you're doing it at your own risk, and you're assumed to have a certain amount of modding knowledge. Same thing I do with the Sharpfire kits. I say mod at your own risk, and I actually do say for experienced modders only. Why? Because my kits are not drop-in, like, let's say, putting in a new bolt sled, putting in a new bolt, putting in a new spring. No, they're not. And you have to basically, like, here, let me get the bolt here. So let's say this is a Sharpfire bolt. This is actually, I could throw this in a Sharpfire right now, like one of my Sharpfires, and it would fire. But this is everything you have to do to it. First off, that's laminated fiber tape right there. Okay, that's unidirectional, and it's right under here, avoiding this groove right here, because if you get any glue in there, it's fucked. It's forever gone. You gotta really be careful with this. Okay, you have to then take out the AR assembly. You have to take out the peg from the back side, and you have to take a rat tail file, and you have to rat tail file that out without taking out too much material, because after that you're going to push in the stainless steel pusher, which then you have to take the breech that's supplied, center it with the breech in there, put some glue in the back of there without putting it down, because you don't want it to go into the brass. So you have crazy glue in the brass. So you just basically do that, you do this to it, and then you take it out, you blow it. Then you have to glue this hole outside right here. You take that off, you sit it like so, like boom, you let it dry overnight, and then you have a breech, okay? That's not drop-in, and I'm very forward about that. Xplorer, I think, has to do the same thing. He has to be forward about what can and can't be done with his kits out of the box. What should be expected of the user, and if you can't, especially if you're all the way in the United States like I am, what may you be expected to do? Like, for example, fitting issues like this. Like, for example, spring biasing, or doing your O-rings. Not to use hardware store springs unless you understand spring spacing, closed space, free length of spring, spring biasing, spring spacering, and everything else that I know, because I'm a professional modder who made pistols what they are today by those concepts alone. I mean, lots of people put in brass breeches, brass barrels, couplers, all this stuff, but they were using really ratty, junky spring biasing, and their spring plates were weak. They were doing them on night finders, so they were trying to laminate steel and stuff, which works, 14K, but it will not work at, let's say, 28 or 26, like a lot of my pistols are, and definitely not dual spring. So, I had to come up with all this philosophy of springs. Believe it or not, most of my philosophy of making a pocket rocket is spring force, spring biasing, application of spring force to the darts, instantaneous spring pressure to the dart gate, the usage of zero dead space. It's all plunger rod, plunger tube, springs, everything. I mean, almost everything I do. The barrel is simply calculated measure, brass machining. I'd say that's about a third of what I do with my blasters. 2/3 of it is all the power plant, and everything else is just usage of that power plant. And that's basically me. But when you got somebody like Xplorer, you got more than that. Okay, so back to the subject. Maybe a disclaimer that says this is more what is expected of you. The way to fix the retaliator bolt sled, I've said it. Okay, make some new ones, like maybe 10 or 12 or 20 at first. CNC some new ones that have that tab, and put it in as an option on your hybrid retaliator sled. Simple fix. The foam, well, if you're making your own darts, you're expected to trim your own foam. The fact that they're already at full dart length, I mean, is a godsend. But let's face it, the foam price dropped off half. That half has to come from somewhere. So there you are. As for the V3 darts, a lot of complaints about the V3 darts too. Oh, well, I can't get them stable, I can't this, I can't that, all that stuff. Well, first off, let's say you're using a scar barrel, and your dart, let me get one of these out of here. Yeah, I know, these are glued one side, they're not glued two side. I'm in the middle of processing these. Let's say the dart has a tendency to want to fly, let's see, what is the tendency of these? Hold on a second. The tendency is to get the dart to pull air and make it fly, I believe, right-hand. Well, what if your scar barrel is made to throw left-hand? So right off the bat, the dart would go out of the barrel, probably not spin that much. From my indications, from when I cleaned up barrels, the darts fly straight until they go up. Then they hit the air. Then they start to spin because the foam is then released from the barrel. Unless you're using 9/16, then you might actually have spin while you're in the barrel because it's not tight to the barrel. My blasters, they're all tight. So then it goes out and it wants to spin that way, but the scar barrel is going to go this way. So in the middle of your flight, what you're going to have is a dart that's spinning left hand, and then all of a sudden it's going to spin right hand. Okay, yeah, that's going to make it go. Yeah, no problem, no problem. Also, what I've noticed with the V2s is your best velocity is between 200 and 215 feet per second. Slower than that, it's not. It works, but it's not as stable. And faster than that, it's all over the place. So you really, but that's decent Xplorer range right there. 200 to 215 feet per second. At that speed, you'll get 170 feet per second. No problem, no problem. And do put in mind that 215 feet per second with a V3 dart is somewhere in the range of, I'd say, maybe 240, 250 feet per second with a V2. So for a dart to pull that kind of power, because they're heavier and they spin and everything else, it's a lot of kinetic energy. I mean, there's a lot of kinetic energy involved. So, so yeah, that's fairly good, you know. The equivalency, so I'm giving you a V2 equivalency that it would take 240 to 250 feet per second to get the same range out of a V2 as you would 215 out of a V3. That's the truth. That's what it would take. I did a firing test with the LT the other day with a V3 darts, and the V3 darts were doing 235 feet per second, and it was the shortest one. I had a blue-tipped V2 dart, and all my others were V3s. The farthest V3 went 177 feet from the basketball court all the way to the benches that were 175 feet away. Okay, and I actually measured this, and it did. The farthest one went 177 feet. The closest V2 went about 173 feet. I'm sorry, farthest V3, and the V2 did 160 feet. So if that gives you any idea that if you balance things out good, and I have made one of my bird of preys in that range of 215, 220 feet per second to address the issue with the V2. So you just got to be really tight with your construction. The other thing is, a lot of people, they'll take their foam, they'll trim their foam in half, they'll put their dart right on it, okay, and they'll glue it. Me, what I do is I round out the front of the dart so I have a skirt on the front of the dart where the foam is that's going to contact my barrel and not this, okay. I glue it, so then I glue it and I put it on there. You know, I should just show you because this is ready for a head. Hold on. So I'll do this by gluing the other side. Okay. So this is a V3 dart head. Okay. All prepped, no wax on it, completely stripped, completely cleaned, everything. So that way it adheres. Okay. So here we are. So when I glue, what I do is I put a little bit on the edge here, and I put some where the dart peg is. So when this goes in, it's going to go into the dart head. That's going to collapse around this part here, and this is going to go in. We're going to have a little bit. So this is the back side. So the back side gets a little bit of vacuum. All right. So I push it. I do a little bit of suction, but then I turn it. And this does two things. One, it evens out the glue on the front of the dart, but also on the inside. So I don't have a meniscus on the inside that's unbalanced. I have one that's perfectly balanced. Okay. So then I'm holding it upside down like this as I'm twisting it. Then I take my finger, I take my excess off. Okay. Then I take that, and then I have a tray. Let's just put it in this tray. I have a tray. This is actually a tray from Johnny Walker gift sets. This is the ice cube tray. It's silicone, actually. I put it in like so, and I have spacers in here that keep the dart completely vertical. So now it is sitting there, it's drying completely vertical. It has back pressure on it, and if it doesn't on one side, I use a spacer that's made from FVJs, and I make that vacuum one way or another. So now I'm pulling air from the glue, I'm pulling air from the foam where the glue is, and I'm also making it so the meniscus inside the dart is actually flat and level. So now I have the best possible center of gravity possible in my dart. So you saw that. I just glued one on the second side with that one. So I let that dry for a week, okay? Because this is a very slow cured glue. It's not instant. It's not hard. It's not hot glue. It's not crazy glue. It's a slow cure, crystal clear household silicone glue called Loctite Go-To glue. Beautiful, beautiful. I get no complaints. My darts are solid as shit. Not only that, but because it's not a hard glue, when they lose it from the foam, I can actually peel this glue off my heads from the backside, and I can just take off my heads and re-glue them again. Isn't that great? I just think that's awesome. The heads are actually recyclable from the foam, and it's not like the Nerf heads where you don't, they're vinyl, and it doesn't really work that well with this glue. On the Xplorer ones, it works perfect with this glue. It's just beautiful. Okay, well anyway, I'm going to get to editing. And I've said my piece. I'm sorry for everybody having trouble with Xplorer and everything else, but I'm not saying I don't have troubles too, but I've had troubles with every mod company. Every company. I mean, if we didn't have troubles with Nerf blasters and we liked them out of the box, we wouldn't be modding, right? Well, there you are. So, I know people's expectations are a little different than mine. I mean, if I buy a camshaft from Claysmith's Cams, for example, I'm going to expect to have to probably work around it. I'm going to have to change my valve train. I'm going to have to change my rocker arms. I'm going to have to change my timing, possibly, on my Acura Integra. Okay. If I order, if I order a turbocharger from Jegs, for example, Jegs.com, I'm going to have to do a bunch of stuff on my car to do it. I'm going to have to change my ECM. I'm going to have to do this. I'm going to have that. I don't expect getting something that is inherent that you have to take it apart and put it back together to be perfect. And I don't understand why everybody else doesn't see it like modding cars, auto racing, drag racing. The only people I know who are like that are Ferrari owners. Don't get me started on Ferrari owners. As much as I love Ferraris, and I love Ferraris, okay? I love them better than Lamborghinis. Definitely more than BMWs. Porsches, they're such great cars, but they feel so weird to me. That tall first gear on a 911. Okay, well, anyway. They're great cars, but they're just not me. They're made by the Germans. And I'm not making fun of the Germans. It's just, I make fun of everybody in my own race. But, and anywho, they're the ones that expect everything perfect out of the box. But then again, every time they get their car service, they're paying $3,500 to get a 458 Italia service every 6 months. At 30,000 miles, they have to change out their cam belts. Okay, those are precision machines. And most people would rather say, I'll just get a Stang or a Vet, fuck it, And most people do. So, anyway, take care.